Hello and welcome. My name is Kian. I am a first year medical student, and today I'm going to be talking about how I used my MacBook versus my iPad during my first year of medical school. So first off, I love the iPad and I love the iPad pencil. I made an entire video about how much I love Notability and all of the benefits. So if you want a more in-depth video on how I use the iPad, I will link it in the description. So first off, if you're kind of wondering about the conclusion of this video and you don't want to watch like me ramble forever, I will tell you it right now. Basically, I don't think the iPad is at a place where it can completely replace the MacBook, and if I had to choose one, I would choose the MacBook. But that being said, I think the iPad makes your life a lot easier. So let's start with the iPad. How did I use it in medical school? Number one is it's hugely helpful for anything that is visual and has a lot of diagrams. So this was helpful for anatomy, neuroanatomy, histology, and radiology. In lectures, I noticed that I was able to keep up, sort of writing directly on the slides, circling structures and labeling them, whereas my peers who didn't have either an iPad and a pencil or some sort of Surface Pro or a stylus pen, they were really struggling. They were making text boxes and dragging them in, trying to type the name of whatever they were labeling, and then they're trying to like draw an arrow in and the arrow would move, and by the time they got that formatted, we'd be like 5 slides later. So the iPad was super helpful for that. Second of all, it allows you to go paperless, which is huge, especially with sort of this movement to save the environment, but just compiles it all into this really thin, sleek device. Another thing that I used my iPad for was making summaries and diagrams. I would usually try to summarize an entire unit into a couple pages, and these couple pages were really meaningful, and I was able to remember them well because I took the time to sort of design them, if you will, and take the time to draw out these diagrams and format everything and handwrite these notes. Another thing that I loved the iPad for was making diagrams to import into Anki. So Anki is a very powerful software used for flashcards, very popular in content-heavy fields such as medical school, and a lot of times using Anki, I noticed that I was making lists of words that I was trying to force myself to memorize, and it just wasn't sticking. So for example, I might say, what are 5 common symptoms of disease X? And every time I came to the slide, I'd forget like the 4th thing. However, on the iPad, what I would do is I would draw a diagram or I'd draw a stick man, kind of pointing to arrows of the different symptoms. Say if he had a rash, I'd draw like a rash on the stick man's arm. For some reason, having that visual aid made it a lot easier to remember that list. So then what I would do is I would screenshot that drawn diagram that I had made and I'd import it to the back of the flashcard. So every time I came up to the Anki flashcard, I would have the list of 5 and also the diagram, and just pulling that diagram into my head was so much easier. So that's sort of everything that I use the iPad for. Onto the MacBook and why I think I can't part with the iPad. One is the typing experience on the MacBook. There's a lot of great keyboards for the iPad, but I don't think they have the same capacity, in my opinion, as the MacBook keyboard. Second of all is document reading. Document reading I found a lot easier on the MacBook. The split screen capabilities of the MacBook are superior to the iPad, in my opinion, because you can have as many windows open as you want. Further, you can connect the MacBook to a desktop. This being said, the latest iPad Pro has a USB port, so I think you can connect it to a desktop, but money. So anyways, back to the MacBook. Having multiple documents open is a lot easier, and this is so helpful when you're doing research because you can have a Word document open and be typing away, as well as the journal article or the slides that you're looking at on the other half of the screen. Another thing, not super related to med school itself, but related to my experience in med school, is the iPad is not at the same level as the MacBook for video editing. So I use iMovie for all of the videos that you see on this channel, and it's just a way easier experience when you have a mouse, which you can't use a mouse on an iPad, it's all touchscreen. Other than that, there's not really any huge differences between the two devices. It's great that they sync with each other, and I think they work really well. I think a question that might come up is, why not use the Surface Pro? And the answer is simply because I'm a Mac person. And I've bought into the cult of Mac. I have an iPhone, I have an iPad, like everything I have is Apple. So to make that switch, they got me there. But if I had to go back in time and do it all again, maybe I would choose the Surface Pro, because it really is a marriage between the two interfaces. You have a touchscreen, you can write on it, but you have the computing power of like a laptop. So I already stated my conclusion, but once again, if I had to choose one, I would choose the MacBook, but I think the iPad really enhances the experience of learning. Anyways, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.